On today's show, Houston Rockets preseason schedule released, plus Tari Eason sits down and conducts a Q&A with The Athletic, talking about his rehabilitation progress, as well as what he's working on ahead of next season, and a few other things. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way that you can help our show out, is to go by the YouTube video, share your thoughts on what we talk about in the episode, or just swing by, say go Rockets. It helps us a ton. And I do want to give a quick shout out. I do see everybody who types and says, when you swing by the video and you say go Rockets, I see those comments. Thank you. It does. It helps us juice the algorithm a little bit. I know we kind of dropped off with the saying, but shout out to the OG everydayers who remember the old saying, for the house, for the team, for the algorithm. So I do appreciate you guys dropping those YouTube comments in there. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. And as always, thank you so much for checking out the show every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. We're going to get to the Rockets preseason schedule release and which game you're most looking forward to of the four that we know about as it stands right now for the preseason schedule release. Then we're going to get into some of what Tari Eason had to share with Kelly Iko of The Athletic, a little Q&A between those two guys talking about Tari's kind of rehabilitation, process and his progress there, where he's at health-wise, and kind of what he's working on ahead of this next season. Effectively, what is going to be like year 2 for Tari, since he only played 21 games this past season. And then also the news that Orlando Robinson, Summer League standout for the Houston Rockets, signing with the Sacramento Kings. And we're going to get into a little bit of the NBA TV rights deal, the little war, I guess, between TNT and Amazon in the bid to try and claim, their stake, or stake their claim, I should say, for the media rights deal for the NBA for the next decade, and kind of what that means. So we'll unpack some of that a little bit later on in the show. But let's start with, and I do have to apologize here from the jump. I know I teased this up in our last episode, saying that our next episode would be the what we learned from Summer League for guys like Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, AJ Griffin, and whatnot. I promise that will be our next episode, but we're going to do it with none other than our weekly co-host, Dr. Madison Moore. Got to get Madison back in the fold here. We've, had some misconnections here. It's a little tough, like when I do traveling, and then obviously the hurricane kind of threw everything all out of sorts. But we got to get the good doctor himself, and then the Podfather back rolled into our LOR rotation here as we're approaching the dog days of the NBA offseason. But I figured it'd be a lot of fun to get some of Madison's thoughts on what he saw from the young guys throughout Summer League, because I've been able to share some of my thoughts and takeaways here, kind of reacting to these guys each and every game that they played in Summer League. So I thought it'd be a little bit more fun to do that episode with another viewpoint to kind of tackle when we discuss some of these guys. So we'll have that out as our next episode. Fingers crossed, I promise on that one. But let's get to the preseason schedule release for your Houston Rockets. So 4 preseason games, par for the course, for 4 games every preseason now. They play the first 2 games on the road, and then they play games 3 and 4 at home for their preseason slate. And it goes as follows. They'll start off their preseason Monday, October 7th on the road against the Utah Jazz. That's an 8 p.m. Central Time tip-off. Then they follow it up Wednesday, October 9th on the road against the OKC Thunder, 7 p.m. tip-off. Then they have a 6-day layoff, and then they come back Tuesday, October 15th, and they play at home at the Toyota Center against the New Orleans Pelicans, 7 p.m. And then Thursday, October 17th versus the San Antonio Spurs, also at home at Toyota Center. That is the Rockets' preseason slate of games. Now, I will say that... right, though, just as a quick refresher here, The Rockets will conduct their media day and their training camp likely, I would say, because that first preseason game is Monday, October 7th. Looking at the calendar really quickly, I would assume that the Rockets will do their media day probably maybe October 1st. However, maybe there's a chance that they would do their media day. Pardon me. Maybe there's a chance that the Rockets would do their media day the week prior, so the final week of September. So either like they just do it, knock it out early, like that Monday. I know some teams like this past season did their media day at the very end of September. Like they would do media day on like Friday or Saturday at the end of September and then go straight into training camp Monday the following week. The Rockets did not do that this past year. So that's at least my early guess, because if they did media day on like the 30th or the 1st, so September 30th or October 1st, that's a really quick turnaround to squeeze in training camp immediately after that and then go directly to their first preseason game on the road in Utah on Monday the 7th, because they're going to want to travel. They're going to have to fly out of Houston on the 6th. So that's at least, some food for thought on where they're going to ultimately conduct media day and subsequently training camp. I will say the other thing to note is every year the Rockets, when they do training camp for the last handful of seasons, they've always done it at either why am I blanking on the college? McNeese State in Lake Charles, or they go to Galveston and they just kind of rent out ballroom space down there at one of the hotels, and that's where they've conducted their training camp the last few years. I'm curious this year, because the Rockets are so close. They were supposed to have finished. We haven't got any official announcement yet. They were supposed to have finished construction on the new training facility by about July 2024 is what we were told originally. That was their projected completion date. I'm curious to see if maybe they stay in Houston this year rather than traveling somewhere else and just do training camp here in Houston to make use of their brand new facility. Because again, the facility looks top of the line. It looks fantastic. They've got 2 full-size practice courts on there, or 2 full-size regulation like NBA courts out there. So TBD on where the Rockets ultimately go for training camp. But back to the preseason games here for a moment. So on the road, Utah Jazz, on the road, OKC Thunder, at home, New Orleans Pelicans, and then at home, San Antonio Spurs. I will say one cool thing about all 4 of these teams that are lined up against the Rockets in preseason is they're all younger teams, right? The Jazz are an incredibly young team, potentially going to get even younger if they manage to trade Lauri Markkanen for some combination of Jonathan Kuminga, Podziemski, and Moses Moody. Then they get to become an even younger team. OKC Thunder, one of the youngest teams in the NBA and one of the best teams from last season. New Orleans, another really young upstart team. And then the San Antonio Spurs, a lot of young talent over there. Obviously, they just brought up, just added Stephon Castle to the mix. They've had their young core. They've got Wemby, obviously. So that's at least one little kind of overarching takeaway from all 4 of those teams. But I will say, I'm curious, which of those games are you most excited to see as a Rockets fan? I think for me, I'm going to have to go here and say that I'm most excited to see them take on the Spurs. Hopefully nobody's resting that game. Hopefully the Spurs aren't resting Wemby ahead of the regular season grind. Because anytime the Rockets and Spurs get to meet up and play against each other, it's always a ton of fun. That I-10 rivalry burns deep. I will say, though, that I think that I am curious also to see how many Rockets fans ultimately travel for the road game against the OKC Thunder. I think that's a game that I'll probably be in attendance for that one. It's only a 6.5 hour drive up from Houston. And that's the kind of thing where you could take the day off from work, drive up that morning, get to OKC in time for the game, spend the night there, drive back the next day. At least that's what I'm planning on doing. So I should be in attendance in person for at least 3 of the 4 Rockets preseason games. Kind of sucks that I can't be there for the very first one on the road against the Utah Jazz, but it is what it is. I'm not going to fly out to Utah for a preseason game. Maybe if it was a regular season game, but that's not going to happen. So I am curious, which preseason game are you most excited to see for the Houston Rockets? Let me know in the YouTube comments. But coming up, we're going to get into Tari Eason's Q&A with The Athletic on how his rehab process has gone and kind of what he's working on ahead of next season. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Look, I don't know about you. My least favorite thing when I'm buying tickets for anything could be to go to a basketball game, baseball game, could be to a concert, a theater event, whatever, right? You're going through the ticket buying process, and then at the very end, you're getting ready to you're ready to pay for your tickets. You've got your seats picked, all that stuff. They price gouge you at the end, and they hit you with the digital handling fee and the service fee and service charges, and all, and you wind up paying more in fees than you do for the actual tickets, right? Look, that doesn't happen with Game Time. They're fully transparent through the whole process. They give you their all-in price upfront, so you know exactly how much you're paying. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's go ahead and dive into a couple of the takeaways from Tari Eason's recent Q&A with the Athletic's Kelly Iko, kind of going over the recovery process. We'll kind of highlight a couple of his answers here, as well as some of the things that it looks like that it sounds like he's working on ahead of this next NBA season. So I'll just kind of parse through some of the answers here. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm going to include the link to Kelly's article in the episode description. So if you want to go check out the whole thing, go there, and obviously make sure that go make sure you're subscribed to The Athletic and everything. Kelly does a fantastic job covering this team. So be sure to make sure that you're supporting his coverage of the Rockets. So let's go ahead and get into this. Just kind of starting things off, Tari did say that he feels good. He feels like he's close to 100%. I'll read it verbatim here. His answer when asked about the recovery process, he said, "I feel good. I feel like I'm close to 100%. You've seen me jumping, running, dunking. I feel pretty normal, to be honest. It's really about getting all the movements back to where they were." I will say there was some recent footage, Tari Eason participating in the Drew League recently, and we saw, a couple little highlight dunks, little moves here and there from Tari Eason hitting social media. He does look like he's back to 100% physical health, but I think one of the biggest issues, and we've heard different athletes kind of talk about this at various points, right, is when you go through an injury like that, the biggest issue is, and I guess it's not so much, it's a different kind of injury for Tari, because it's not like he injured himself while actually playing. It was like the weird, leg tumor thing, but he had to go through surgery, all that. And when you go through that rehab process, regardless of how you got hurt, it's always getting you back to that 100%, stage where you can fully trust your body again, right? That's the issue. If you've ever had a major injury in your own personal career, whether you're playing down at the YMCA, whatever, you just know that the biggest barrier often is like the mental element of getting back to trusting your body 100%. The way you did before the injury. And for a guy like Tari Eason, who plays as hard as he does, I'm sure that's going to be, the final hurdle, I guess, so to speak, for him to cross, is being able to push his body the way that he did pre-injury, the pre-injury version of Tari Eason. So let's go to, he did say, he goes on to say, he goes on to be asked, when did you start to feel like something was wrong, when asked about kind of how he felt about the injury? And Tari said, "I'd say right before training camp in the Bahamas during the team trip, working out, I would notice that my shin would be really, really sore. I thought it was just maybe a lack of treatment or lack of stretching, things like that. I put more time in the training room and just ignored it, but definitely around training camp, because every time I jumped, I was in pain. I thought it might have been shin splints or something. The previous year, I played all 82 games and definitely wasn't in the training room then as much as I was this year." And for a guy who obviously, right, Tari had been, an Iron Man through the first season of his career, I will say that this does highlight, that answer from Tari highlights the fact that this was a problem. This was something he was dealing with well before his injury happened in preseason of this past campaign, right? A lot of us chalked it up. I know I did here on this show, and many others did as well. we chalked it up to, oh, Tari got hurt in preseason, and then that injury in preseason is what kind of exacerbated, and caused like the tumor to like flare up, and that's what caused him to miss so much time. Is that what kind of, it was the spark plug or the catalyst for the whole situation? But it sounds like this has been a thing that was, that he was dealing with for a very, very long time, ahead of even, playing organized basketball, in a preseason setting with the Rockets. Now he does highlight here that he's been working with Aaron Miller. So shout out to Aaron Miller, a guy that we've had on the show here before, the skills trainer for Cam Whitmore, who's also done some skills training with Tari Eason. He highlighted that he's been working out with Aaron. He goes on to say, I've been working with Aaron since LSU. He came down to LSU and worked out with me and Coach Will Wade. So we've had a relationship since then. And seeing him in the gym with Cam, it made more sense because of our prior relationship. So sounds like he's been doing a lot of skills training with Aaron Miller. And earlier in the article, before kind of the Q&A section that Kelly was highlighting here, he made sure to point out that Eason is working to expand his offensive repertoire. So basically, where's the line? He said, here it is. Having largely made his mark in the NBA on the defensive side, Eason is working to expand his offensive repertoire. According to NBA.com tracking data of Eason's 222 career three-point attempts, 207 of them were created for him. Within Coach Ime Udoka's offensive scheme, which is adding wrinkles ahead of the 2024-2025 season, there is room for improvisation within half-court structures, and Eason is working to ensure he's a more diverse option on the floor. That's kind of the really that honestly, aside from just the fact that it sounds like Tari is on track to be healthy and ready to go ahead of the Rockets training camp and everything. That was my biggest takeaway from Kelly's article, is that the Rockets apparently, both with Tari being, putting an emphasis on expanding his game, and with the Rockets hoping to add some more offensive wrinkles to what they're trying to do this upcoming season. We've talked about this before here on the show, but what more can Tari Eason be? What more can Tari Eason do? We saw last Summer League, when Jabari and Tari made their return to Vegas Summer League for a pair of games, we saw Tari kind of step out of his comfort zone a little bit more. We saw him trying to create off the dribble. We saw him attacking in a variety of ways. We saw him getting to like some turnaround, fadeaway jump shots and stuff in the mid-range. So I know that one of those like crazy, insane high-end comps that we've thrown out there for Tari Eason in the past has been Kawhi Leonard. I don't know if Tari's ever going to have the handle that Kawhi has. I don't know if he'll ever be the off-the-bounce shooter that Kawhi is, or be able to attack and really, control an offense the way that Kawhi can. We know that the defensive similarities are absolutely there. But I am curious, how much more can Tari Eason bring to the table offensively? Is he... I think he can be more than just a spot-up 3-and-D threat. So what does that look like, right? What is he working on specifically this offseason to bring into this next year? Is he going to be better driving and finishing at the rim, attacking off the catch that way on the perimeter? Is he working on his mid-range game? Is he adding, a floater or a little teardrop or something to his bag? Is he going to work on... I think one thing that Tari could absolutely do, and shout out to Aaron Gordon, who does this a lot, I would love to see Tari just overpower smaller players. Like, sometimes Tari Eason has a matchup advantage on a smaller guy because they want to disrespect, the defense doesn't respect him, or they want to throw like a smaller player, or if a defense is switching and putting smaller guys on him. I would love to see Tari Eason be able to just overpower a smaller guy by posting him up. Basically what the Rockets did this past year with Dillon Brooks, and how Dillon Brooks would sometimes punish mismatches if they put a smaller player on him, either by means of a switch or just, outright assigning a smaller, weaker defender to try and guard him on the perimeter. I would love to see the Rockets post up Tari Eason occasionally if they put a smaller player on him, because Tari's a good, 6'8", 6'9", big, strong, and he's a great rebounder. So even if you post him up and he misses the first attempt, he might be right there to just get the offensive rebound and get another putback, right? So that's what I would like to see Tari bring into this next season. Is obviously he's working to expand his offensive game. I'm wondering what he's working on, but that's at the very top of my wish list. Is I want to see Tari come in with a little I don't know, like a little baby hook or something, or a little bit, a couple post moves here and there that he can break out if there is a smaller defender guarding him. Because at the end of the day, the Rockets have plenty of other offensive weapons. No, they don't need Tari to be like an offensive primary initiator. That's, he can stay in his lane and still do his job while also expanding on his game. I don't know if he'll ever be like a number one offensive option, the guy that's creating offense for other guys, but if he is working to become a more diverse player offensively, that can only bring good things to the Rockets offense. So if you want to check out the rest of the article and what else Tari had to say, be sure to click the link in the episode description. But coming up, I want to get into Orlando Robinson, him signing with the Sacramento Kings, as well as the NBA TV rights deal and kind of what that's going to look like in the coming years for the NBA and how that impacts the NBA coverage at large. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, so first things first, Orlando Robinson, who was one of the standouts for the Houston Rockets during their Las Vegas Summer League set of games. Unfortunately, his time as a member of the Houston Rockets was relatively short-lived. Kind of figured it was going this direction ultimately. Like, he was too good for a two-way deal. Even though I was begging for the Rockets to potentially sign him to a two-way contract and potentially moving on from N'Faly Dante. It is what it is. He was too good for a two-way deal. I had the feeling that a team somewhere out there would take a chance on him, and credit to the Sacramento Kings for being the team to step up to the plate and do it. He's going to add, a really important depth piece for them at the backup 5 spot. And honestly, he earned it, right? He played out of his mind in Summer League. He showcased why he deserved an NBA contract. And that's the really cool thing about Summer League is there are certain guys that, have maybe gotten a bad shake of things for their first, 1 or 2 years in the NBA landscape. Maybe they landed somewhere where they couldn't really showcase their talent or couldn't really carve out a spot in a rotation, that kind of thing. So they fell out of the rotation and then they get waived or cut or traded to another team, and then they can't find a spot in that rotation. So Summer League kind of gives you a second chance of sorts to go out there and prove, hey, I'm way better than all these guys in Summer League. There should be an NBA team out there that should sign me to a deal. And again, credit to Orlando Robinson. He went out there, he earned that contract with the Sacramento Kings, and I wish him all the best moving forward. It was really cool to get the chance to see him play up close and personal in Las Vegas, and just to, talk to him a little bit after one of the games, kind of get to know him a little bit. He deserved the contract, and I'm happy that he got one. Just kind of sucks that the Rockets didn't have any space for him on their current roster, because even if they had signed him to a two-way deal, hell, even if they had offered him, a standard NBA contract like the Kings did, there's just nowhere for him to play. I mean, the Rockets, their best player is Alp. He's at the 5 spot already. They've got Steven Adams. They've got Jock Landale. They've got Jeff Green. They've got Jabari Smith Jr. They've got too many different guys that they can run to the 5 spot. There was no way in hell for Orlando Robinson to crack a rotation here in Houston. But we'll see what happens ultimately with his time with the Sacramento Kings. Now, wanted to get into a little bit here the whole hullabaloo with the NBA TV programming schedule, which as it currently stands, it seems that so the quick TLDR of this, right? The NBA TV rights, programming schedule, all that stuff was up for renegotiation with this next TV deal that the NBA is trying to strike, this multi-billion-dollar deal for the next 10, 15 years, whatever it is. And Amazon decided to throw their name into the cap to make a bid to take over essentially the portion of the NBA broadcast schedule that TNT has owned for years. And TNT had to come back with an offer to match or exceed what Amazon was offering. And apparently, now this is just my rudimentary understanding of what's happening here. Apparently, TNT did come back and match the offer, and then they issued a statement that said, where was their statement at? Hang on, I want to double check and make sure I get the statement right. Because, oh my goodness, I had the statement pulled up here. What happened? Here it is. Okay. So TNT issued a statement that said, "We have matched the Amazon offer as we have a contractual right to do and do not believe that the NBA can reject it." So this is the issue: is Amazon had their bid, TNT was waiting and then issued their counter bid and tried to match the offer. And apparently the NBA tried to go with the Amazon offer instead first. And it seems that apparently that the NBA might not be allowed to do that. So it appears that TNT, they said, we think they have grossly misinterpreted our contractual rights with respect to the 2025-2026 season and beyond, and we will take appropriate action. So this could become a huge legal battle, legal dispute, whatever, between TNT and Amazon and the NBA in trying to figure out who has what rights and all that stuff. Now, the silver lining here is the fact that TNT did come back and try to match the Amazon offer. Assuming they're able to go through the proper legal channels and confirm that their offer has to be accepted by the NBA, that could mean the continued success of inside the NBA, because that was the one big hang up in all these TV rights and deals and discussions is inside the NBA, TNT's halftime show, right? With Ernie, Chuck, Shaq, and Kenny. That has been the primetime halftime show for a very, very long time. That quartet of personalities has been the peak of the peak of NBA basketball, entertainment and commentary and hilarity and stupidity, and losing those guys would have absolutely sucked. So I am tentatively excited about what it could potentially mean for the future if TNT is able to retain their rights. And obviously, we've grown accustomed to what the national TV schedule looks like over the last, however many decades, however many years that this programming schedule has been in place, right? Tuesday and Thursday nights on TNT. That's been the big deal for a long time. That's been where the marquee games have been played, all that good stuff. At least as it stands right now in what was released by the NBA, if TNT is not able to adjust their legal claims to the broadcasting offer, then the programming schedule as it stands currently and what it's going to look like in 2025, 2026 means that Monday nights are going to be on Peacock, Tuesdays are going to be on NBC, Wednesdays are going to be on ESPN, Thursdays are going to be on Amazon, which I think there was a wrinkle in there about the Thursday night football on Amazon was also an issue. So maybe this takes place after football season ends, technically, I think was what I read earlier. Fridays will be a mix between Amazon and ESPN. And then Saturdays will be ABC and Amazon. So those are the claims to who gets what. And then the premium coverage outlets, NBC gets NBA opening night, plus the All-Star game, plus playoffs, plus conference finals. ESPN gets the Christmas Day slate of games, the NBA playoffs, plus the finals. And then Amazon would get the NBA Cup, the play-in tournament, plus some playoff games. So that's at least the tentative breakdown of how all this works. And again, with the Rockets now kind of on the upswing and hopefully, building on their 41-41 season from this past year. Obviously, the Rockets were kind of in purgatory for a few years there as one of the NBA's worst teams. They got very few, if at all times, there were sometimes they got no nationally broadcast games. The national broadcast schedule moving forward is going to matter a lot more for the Rockets because as they ascend back into relevancy, they're going to get more and more nationally broadcast games. So the slate of national broadcast TV partners is ultimately going to matter in how we access these Rockets games and how we view them because of national blackout restrictions and all that good stuff. So figured I would address it here on the show. I really do. I will hope just from a fan perspective, I do hope that the rights stay with TNT. I would hate to see them go over to Amazon. And I don't even know what Amazon would do for like a halftime show. I have no idea. In fact, if you tuned in at all to any of Amazon's like Thursday night football coverage or whatever, how has their like pre-game, halftime, and post-game coverage been over at Amazon? Because I'm not a huge football guy, so I have no idea. So I don't even know what to expect if Amazon does ultimately win the deal. I don't know what kind of a crew or what type of analysts or personalities they would be looking to bring in to their halftime show, to their pregame coverage, whatever, if they do ultimately win the rights to this broadcast deal. So curious your thoughts. Let me know in the YouTube comments, all that good stuff. But as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify if you would be so inclined. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.